Good afternoon. The Memphis Landmarks Commission is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of August the 22nd, 2024. My name is Cindy Grivich Tucker, and I'm the chair of the commission. Mr. Brett Ragsdale serves as the executive secretary of the commission. Mr. Ragsdale, may I get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gill?
Here.
Ms. Love?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Tolbert?
Here.
Mr. Winter?
Here.
Chair Tucker?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Memphis Landmarks Commission and the Historic District provisions are established to ensure preservation of structures that are of historic value to Memphis. Our function is to preserve significant resources, enhance community pride, and foster civic beauty, and ensure compatibility within designated historic districts. The Commission is authorized to review projects and determine their appropriateness based on the design review guidelines. At this time, I would like to swear the staff in. You may remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting? Someone?
Motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Mr. Secretary, please provide us the Secretary's report if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to make a couple of announcements. We do have two new commission members. One of them is with us today, and the other has COVID. So I know it's going around, but we want to welcome Lauren Tolbert to the commission as a new commissioner, and Shelley Rainwater as well. And so Shelley will be joining us next month, and after she's well. And we want to thank our outgoing members, Joyce Cox, who was a former chair of the commission as well, and Ms. Natasha Strong. So we want to thank them for their service to the city of Memphis and to the commission.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll go into the procedure for the meeting. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are found on the right podium. For each case, staff of the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, the commission will hear first from those speakers in support of the application, then from those speakers in opposition to the application, and the speakers will have 3 minutes each. And then finally, the applicant will have a 3-minute rebuttal period. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the commission. The chair may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the commission will be sworn in by the chair. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD planner at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the commission will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. All motions by the commission will be made in the affirmative. The bylaws governing the commission require the affirmative vote of a majority of the attending members to approve an application. The commission may also vote to hold an application for a period of 1 month. Madam Chair, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled.
Okay, thank you. At this point, the commission will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience or the commission objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should do so by a show of hands, and then when the secretary reads the case. Once the consent agenda is established, the commission will vote on all cases placed on the agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on each case. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to note that 2 items, item number 2, COA 2024-078, and item number 4, COA 2024-102 are being held. And so the consent agenda items are item number 3, COA 2024-097, 1836 Waverly Avenue in the Glenview Historic District. Item number 5, COA 2024-103, 1159 Forest Avenue in the Speedway Terrace Historic District. Item number 6, COA 2024-104, 246 South Belvedere Boulevard in the Central Gardens Historic District. And I think we'll hold item number 7 and we can hear a presentation on that. It's eligible for consent, but we'll just hold it and hear the presentation and then we can take it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to hear it. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I would like to remind the commission that by voting on the consent agenda, he or she affirms that he or she has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. Love? Ms. Tolbert?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Winter?
Yes.
And Chair Tucker?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
carries.
If you are here for any of those cases that are just been put on the consent agenda, you've been approved. You do not have to remain at the meeting, but are welcome to stay for the remainder of the cases if you want to. Okay. All right, thank you. At this point, I would like to state that the minor COA applications as listed on the agenda have been reviewed and approved by the commission. The commission will now continue with the regular hearing of the major COA applications as listed on the agenda. Mr. Secretary, please call the first case of the regular agenda.
Item number 1, COA 2024-065, 1659 Southern Avenue in the Glenview Historic District.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? Please come to the podium. Can you state your name and address for the record?
I'm Justin Freeman,
Address?
1659 Southern.
Okay, thank you. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Have you seen the report?
Yes.
Okay, are you in agreement with the report?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so staff, could we?
Good afternoon. I'm Margot Payne with DPD, presenting this case on behalf of my colleague Aisha Penzis. This property is a colonial revival style duplex built in 1955. The structure contributes to the Glenview National Register Historic District. The applicant is seeking retroactive approval of exterior alterations. This includes replacement of the original 6/6 windows with 1/1 double hung vinyl windows, removal of the original wrought iron porch supports, and painting of the original brick exterior. Here's the rear elevation. Here's a close-up of one of the replacement windows. The retroactive alterations don't fully adhere to the Glenview design guidelines. Painting of unpainted masonry exteriors is prohibited. Additionally, replacement windows do not match the original 6/6 grid pattern, and although the applicant replaced the original wrought iron porch supports, the new wood support columns are considered appropriate replacement materials. So we're recommending approval with 6 conditions. 1, all replacement windows shall match the original windows of the structure with a 6/6 grid pattern and exterior muntins. Stick-on, snap-in, or in-between glass muntins shall not be used. 2 smaller windows on the front facade shall be replaced with casement windows that complement the original 6/6 windows of the structure. 3, porch columns shall be of painted wood with minimum 8 by 8 dimensions. Stained or unpainted timber shall not be used. 4, front doors shall be of appropriate style, and the applicant shall provide door and window details for approval by staff prior to issuance of the COA. And 5, the trim shall be painted in a distinct color to complement the existing earth tone color of the brick. The overall color scheme shall have a minimum of 2 different colors to differentiate between the materials, and shall be submitted for approval by staff prior to the issuance of the COA. And any change or deviation from the approved COA shall be submitted to the commission for review and approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. The commissioners have questions for staff.
I do. One of the questions I have, Margo, is for the windows. Was there, I mean, I know we're focusing more on the grid pattern, but Was there any concern about the fact that it appears that they have actually significantly shrunk the opening sizes of it? Was that part of this conversation?
Yes. So the idea of these conditions would be new windows to fit the opening sizes and match the grid pattern, not an application of grids on top.
Okay, is it possible we can add that in it, because I
Sure.
think that wasn't clear inside of that as a condition? Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, would you have 5 minutes to present your case and talk about what they've suggested?
The only disagreement I have would be for the windows. Those windows,
Whoops, sorry.
those windows are more energy efficient. They're just a better window that was originally in the house. That's pretty much the only thing that I have an objection to.
Okay, did y'all want to address that?
So I think the issue with the windows, I understand energy efficiency, that's a great move, we appreciate that. Did you consider windows that have the same opening size as the original windows and with the grid pattern as the guidelines require?
No.
Could you explain?
Yeah, I didn't have any guidelines or anything before I replaced the windows. That was already done.
Sure.
Were you not aware you were in a historic district?
No,
You don't live in the structure, correct? And you bought it to do a renovation on?
yes,
Same stuff.
Is this your first project as a renovation or a rehab?
no,
Now, I believe you've done more, have you not?
yes.
In historic districts as well, correct? No?
It's the
Okay,
first one.
okay.
So I think that the issue is that in the historic district, we're trying to protect the historic value of the structures, and some of the major contributing components of that are windows and also, in this case, brick. So that's why the guidelines that are in place require that the windows be replaced with the same size opening. And it looks like you have slightly smaller windows, so you've added trim work around to kind of bring that back down. And also, the grid pattern is a very important part of the historic value of the windows, protecting the same size opening in the grid pattern, and also the brick. So that's why those are important. If you change those, it loses the historic look. So I think that's right now the discussion is that those are significant items that we'd like to see those restored.
And I think my question too, and perhaps y'all can answer it, is when you apply for a building permit or a permit, does it not say if it's a historic district?
It does.
Thank you. So when did you apply for did you start this stuff before you applied for your permit, or did you have
Yes.
the permit? You started it before, correct?
Yes,
So I remember we kind of discussed this in design, you were at design review, right?
yes.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the two smaller windows. Were those, when you purchased it, they appear to be paneled up already, but
Yeah, those are still the original windows that were in the house.
they're still in there as they are?
Yes,
They just painted over?
You want to see the other side, the original?
Yeah, it looks pretty much exactly the same on the original structure, because I know I saw in number 2 that the request is for those two smaller windows to actually be replaced with casement, and my question is that something that we're pushing extra on, or is this,
those windows are not going to be touched.
those windows aren't touched at all? And like you can see, that looks exactly the same. I I think those were my only questions for that, because I mean, honestly, this building is, it's built later than most of the other homes on this strip, and that'll probably be more of an inner conversation amongst us. But I know there's very minimal amount of reflection to a colonial revival style, and essentially the windows are it for this project, which is why there's so much attention being given to that. So just something for you to kind of know of why we are being as much of a stickler on those kinds of elements than not.
And also those two smaller windows, I think the reason why they are blacked out but white and painted white, because those are bathrooms.
I figured that.
Yeah, I figured that too.
So I think that's a privacy thing.
Okay, any other questions?
Could I ask staff? Is it okay if I ask you?
Yeah.
For that kind of situation with the panel windows or windows that have already been that way, is that a requirement for changing out, since it essentially is?
No, I believe that condition was put in there in case they were replaced, but
Okay.
if you're not replacing them, then we don't want you to replace them. We'd rather you keep what you have.
Okay.
So,
All right.
works for us.
Okay.
So, yeah, we could strike that condition,
Yeah.
just to make it clear. And to go back to your first question, on number one, we could clarify that by, by rewording it. All windows visible from the street shall be replaced to match the original opening size and grid pattern. Because right now, I agree, maybe it could be confusing, but we are saying to replace the windows that are currently in there. So.
Yeah. Can there be some flexibility as to, since I know reading the original description, there actually wasn't a specification as to what that grid pattern was. And this, I feel, was originally created to be a colonial revival, almost contemporary for that time version. Could there be some flexibility to make sure that that window patterning could be reflective of it, as in a 6/1, or just as long as there is a gridding happening?
And can we tell, it's hard for me to tell, can we tell what it was there?
Right now, we have the 6/6.
Yeah.
6/6 was the original.
Right, and right now, when you read the description, it just says double hung rectangle windows in it as a colonial revival. So that was a question I had before.
So if we said that they would match the original opening size and grid patterns, then they would be the 6/6. Is that?
Well, that's why I was like, could there be any flexibility with there being a 6/1 or something that's matches that era of possibilities, as even in itself being a contemporary interpretation of what a colonial revival home could be? Because this is probably the more bottom rung of a colonial revival.
We could, then we wouldn't want to say original grid pattern, but I mean, would you want to give some?
Reflective of the era,
Yeah.
something like that.
I wonder
So
if we could just give a few specifics.
I'd say do that.
do that.
Because I
Okay.
think if you say
6/1.
reflective of the era,
That could be so like
We-
6/1 could be acceptable, 9/1 can be
Well,
acceptable,
he might not
9/9,
understand.
6/6.
yeah.
Any of those? Okay. If that's
We
possible,
could.
just to even
Because I
allow
think that other is
some
too
kind of
wide open for
flexibility.
people to try to understand.
Okay, I know.
It's nice thought.
So maybe
Reflective of the era as in.
expand the possibility of grid patterning.
So, all the windows visible from the street shall be replaced to match the original opening size, and grid patterns shall be submitted to staff for approval.
Yeah. Because I know, I mean, you guys would know what could work with that. Yeah.
Or all other conditions.
And then are we,
And I think also with those center windows, if they do get replaced, I don't think it's going to be a casement. I think they're all supposed to have been double hung from the beginning. So we'll just, and that's,
There you go. Okay. Okay, we are now going to close for the public hearing portion of this, and we're going to talk amongst ourselves. You might want to just sit right down because we'll probably might ask you a few questions after this.
Okay.
I need a motion. A positive.
A motion to approve staff recommendations to further on to discussions.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okey doke. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good adjustment to the first condition. I do think we need to underline the window shall match the original opening size. That's an important detail. So thank you for clarifying
it's
that.
up a lot.
Yes. And then the only other question I had was, is everybody okay striking condition number 2 about the smaller windows?
I think if we specifically say if they are replaced, then they should match this and strike the casement window requirement.
Makes sense.
And can you, so if, so number 2 would be changed instead of striking it, the 2 smaller windows on the front side. If replaced, shall be, and what we're
Shall be the double hung, or I would say strike the casement window requirement for it, but everything else sounds like, along with the 6/6, I think that also would match what we were just talking about with the first. So.
Other discussion? Okay.
All right. And this is as amended without objection. All right. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Tolbert,
Yes.
Ms. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Gill,
Yes.
Mr. Winter,
Yes.
and Chair Tucker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Sir? And you can ask her any questions that you want to if you don't understand what, and are you planning on doing any other renovations in, well, historic districts or renovations in general?
I am not sure.
Okay, so what you need to do.
It just depends on what deal that I get. So, and this, like I
Go
said,
ahead.
this was my first one. So now I know that I need to come and get all of this stuff done on the front end.
Yeah,
So
get a permit.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah, if you do 2 things, find out if you're in a historic district first, and go get a permit before you do the work. That will really help.
Then you don't have to, still have to submit, if you're in a historic district, no matter what, you have to submit to this office, to staff.
Okay.
And then they can help you through this, and then you won't have to go through all of this again.
Okay.
But
They've
like he's
already
saying,
been like a
make
big
sure you
help.
get a permit to do anything first.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've already been a big help. I've been down here several times.
Okay.
Just trying to get the application and everything straight. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have,
All right, and our final case, and again, this is eligible for consent, but it's a National Register case, and so we thought we would just do a really brief presentation just so that you could see that, and the applicant may want to do a presentation as well, if they would like to do that. Oh, I see Mr. Colicchiotti there, so if he wants to call him out. So the case is item number 7, NR 2024-001, and it's a National Register nomination for 55 North Danny Thomas Boulevard.
Yes, this last item is a nomination of the First National Bank Operations Center to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Structure is eligible for listing under Criterion C as an example of brutalist architecture in Memphis. It was built in 1971 and designed by Memphis architect Francis Ma. I can pull up the nomination form. We have some representatives here today if they want to say anything about the project.
oh, come
But
on
we can
up.
just run through the pictures.
We did have a a good presentation at the design review, so it was nice to hear.
did.
So if you wanted to share some of that, I think that would be really helpful.
It was. What, oh, design review? Yes, because you didn't go to the design review.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in with a joke because Francis Ma was my professor in school, and he was the guy who said, "Tony, you are not as good as you think you are." So I feel honored to be here representing a project of his, putting it on the National Register.
I was going to say, look at you now.
It was fun.
He was wrong. Obviously, he was a better architect.
There you go. Appreciate that.
Well, just because he's dead.
So we don't really have a whole lot to say other than it is a beautiful example of that architecture, and we think it absolutely qualifies, and it's a good thing for the city to have additional register projects.
What's the plan for the building? What's Mr. Velasquez here going to do, Bill, with the, I mean, I assume the use is going to remain office, but is there a plan?
So the immediate effort is to clean it up, restore it, the shell and core, preserve it, is a better word than restore. There are multiple different interior build-out options that are being considered.
Gotcha. So it could go resi, it could go office?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay, it's vacant right now?
completely,
And I'm just wondering, is it steel frame on the inside?
yes.
Gotcha. And so the exterior is just it's not structural?
Yeah, it's a precast curtain wall system.
Gotcha. Yeah. That was breakthrough at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
He did a lot of breakthrough.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you because, and I said this at design review, we've lost people, brutalism is much maligned,
Yes.
and it should not be. It's part of our history, just as a lot of other things are. And we've lost the big one that Mr. Adelot did, and it was a lovely building. I live right across the street from it. And I'm so glad that you're putting this one and trying to save it, because we don't need to lose our Brutalist architecture.
Amen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. That's it, I guess.
And I will call for a vote, and we'll still vote on it. So,
Okay.
and I will just go ahead and note that Ms. Tolbert